Welcome back, Fast Willie fans. It's Will. I'm here with John for episode 2 of Fast Track. Fast because I like to fast, track because John likes to track everything. Seriously, he tracks everything. If I lick an envelope and there's a little bit of sweetness left from the glue residue, he wants me to track
10 calories, baby.
that. Seriously. All right, so the topic today that we're going to talk about is a halfway point update for the 28-day challenge, and we're going to go through some of the data that I've collected. John has me collecting data every single day. So I'm going to show you some of that data, and we're going to talk about it here. John, do you want to start with measurements or do you want to start with weight?
Probably the weight first, just because measurements, I wouldn't have ever expected them to change much anyway.
Okay.
And from the numbers, we can see that there's a lot more to look at with the weigh-ins.
Okay, so I'm going to pull up the chart of my weight here and put it over our faces so that everybody can see it, and we'll just start to talk about it. So the first day of the fasting, where are we at here?
The 24th, right? This was the day after your last day of eating, right?
No. So I put in those measurements. The 24th, the 25th were the 25th was my last eating day. On the 7/26, I weighed 206.2. That was the morning of my first fasting.
First fast. Okay.
Okay. So I took measurements leading up for about a week. If you want me to add those weights in here for the next time, I'll do that so that everybody can see where my weights were for like a whole week. But it was in this range, like in the mid 20x, right?
Yeah.
So my first day after fasting, or my first day after eating, I was 206. The next day I dropped about 5.5 pounds. The next day was a little bit less. And on my first eating day morning, before my first mukbang, I was 197.4. So you see, I lost about 8.5 pounds, and that's expected. I know we were going into this and we wanted to show people that's about normal, as we'll get into as we keep going through the fast. Is there anything that you want to say about this, John?
Yeah, well, like you said, it's normal, and I mean, if you just think about it logically, you're literally not putting any food in your body for 3 days straight. Every single day, the weight should drop a pound to, like, I don't know, 3 pounds, something like that. So over the course of that day, yeah, the weigh-in on the first day of fasting was relatively high because you eat a lot of food the day beforehand. So that's going to be relatively high. The lowest is going to be relatively low. So the overall, what's the word I'm using? I want to think here. Just from the highest point to the lowest point is, like you said, almost close to 10 pounds. I mean, 8-pound jump. But what I did is went and I averaged out your first week of weigh-ins, starting with the 24th. So when you were eating, but I did get an eating day in there, and then all of your fasting days. And that was just under 203. And then we didn't get into this yet, but going into week 2, I did the same thing to see what your average week 2 was, which also includes 1 eating day and 5 or 6 fasting days. So that might throw things.
You're not doing it on a 4-day average. I think we should do it on a 4-day average rather than a weekly average. But unless that's what you do with your clients, maybe we can do.
I mean, we do a 7-day average, but either way, I mean, the grand scheme of things, that's going to level out anyway, and we're going to see what the ultimate difference is. I don't think it would make too much of a difference in terms of what the averages would compare to. But it is interesting to see that, like, from week 1, 7-day average to week 2, 7-day average, your weight was down over 1.5% of your body weight, which is, in terms of like when I set like a rate of loss for people, is relative, like it's high, you know what I mean? Like I would set that as like you're losing a good chunk of weight like relatively quickly, you know what I mean? So
you don't want your clients to be losing weight that fast?
Well, it depends on where your starting point is. Like if you were 350 pounds, then I would say you might even want to lose more than that on a weekly basis or something. But you know what I mean? If you're like relatively lean, not super overweight, somewhere between 1 to 1.5% is what I usually shoot for, just so that it's not like super drastic, especially because we're eating every single day, right? So that would mean that your deficit is like pretty big on a daily basis.
Would you consider me at about 6 foot, 206 to be relatively lean.
Yeah, at this point, that's why I'm saying like that's still a pretty quick pace for
Mm-hmm.
where you're at now.
Mm-hmm.
When you started this last year or whatever, I would have said, like, I wouldn't have been impressed. I would have been like, you could probably lose more than that. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? But now I would say that I mean, you're still making relatively rapid
Yeah.
progress. So
What if I was losing about 5% per week? What would you say then?
that you're definitely, I would say that the 10,000 calories that you're getting in or whatever you were getting in on your eating days wasn't enough. You know what I mean? Like if eventually that's going to run you into a hole where it's like, okay, you're under eating. You know what I mean? That's just losing too much of your body weight too quickly.
But you
So
would say that 10,000 calories over 4 days right now and being at a 1.7% loss
weekly loss.
is like healthy. I'm probably getting enough nutrients. I'm probably getting enough to feed my body.
Just in terms of how fast you're dropping weight, I would say that it's not, yeah, it's not unhealthy by any means, just by the rate.
The number is higher than what you want to see, but it's still within a healthy range. It's still within like a standard deviation probably of what you
Right. And you got to think about it too. That 1.5 like cap that I'm going off of is just mostly rooted in like long-term sustainability and whatnot. So like you're kind of going about things differently, but one of your whole points is what you are doing is sustainable for you. So obviously you're not going to be able to lose weight forever. There's going to get to a point where it's like, okay, you don't have any body fat or anything. Like, what are you going to do? Just starve to death. But
Right.
I think that at this point, that's not like astronomically high where I'm like, dude, I'm worried about you for losing weight too quickly. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, okay, so let's move on then to the next eating day. So I ate over 10,000 calories on my first eating day, and my weight went above where my last,
right.
like where I started. And I comment on this in my second 3-day vlog that I'm not panicked about that because there are so many, that has nothing to do with whether I'm losing body fat or not. There's so many variables going on there, and I ate 10,000 calories. So like if I didn't go to the bathroom, as much as I could have or whatever, before I weighed in. And I don't remember that. Maybe I should track that as well. Maybe on my next challenge I will. Also, how much sodium was in that? Like how much was I lifting weights that day compared to 4 days prior? Were my muscles holding in more? I don't know. What would my muscles hold in, John?
Water,
Like,
glycogen.
is that a thing? You lift your
Yeah,
muscles
I
holding more
mean,
water?
definitely overall inflammation increases when you lift. So yeah, you could definitely hold on to weight for that too.
Right. So there are a lot of factors there. I'm not panicked about seeing 207.2 when my first weigh-in was 206.2.
Right. And that's the same type of thing I tell my clients, even if, I mean, obviously there's a different structure that they're adhering to, but it's the same exact thing. Like if you have a bigger dinner or something that you normally have, or just even eat later in the evening than your normal schedule is,
Mm-hmm.
your next day weigh-in's probably going to be up. And depending on like what you said, sodium, how much water you've eaten, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it could be up a couple of pounds. You know what I mean? Yours is, I mean, it's just under a 10-pound jump from the last day fasting or to the before that. So that would freak a lot of people out, I think. But the same message applies. It's like, it's normal. You can explain that away by like almost like a massive amount of factors that go into it. So just like you said, it's not anything to like worry about.
I hope my hope for this little chat here is if you've never fasted before and you're watching this for the first time and then you eat and your weight jumps, like don't panic. I want you to not panic because you can see the rest of my numbers here. I'm going to keep spiking and I'm going to keep dipping. And as long as the trends are going in the right direction, there's no reason to panic. And if you're comfortable fasting and you find it to be something that you are able to get through a day fasting or 2 days or 3 days, or whether you're doing like a 16-hour, whatever, don't panic about one number. Go through your cycle again and see what the number is the next time. Then go through it again and see what is the next time. And if the trend isn't going in the right direction, then maybe you need to switch something up. Right. But if you just see one number go up one time, you might be fine, which we're going to find out. So like my next number, so my second so I went from 206 to 200.8. And then on this one, I went 207 to 202. And then from 202 to 198.4. Whereas in the last one, I went from 200 to 198.4. So on that second day, I made up that ground. And then on the third day, right before I was eating, the first time I went down 1 pound, and this time I went down 3 pounds, bringing me to 195.4 heading into my second mukbang.
Right. So your low weigh-ins were lower this round.
Yeah, my
cycle.
lowest peak of this cycle, my lowest valley of this cycle was a full 2 pounds lower than the cycle before, even though my starting weight was a full 1 pound. So now we're looking at almost 13 pounds difference between the first day of this cycle and the last day of the cycle. So a little bit over 3 pounds per day.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to comment on that, or just want me to keep going through the numbers?
Well, just because you're talking about the numbers too, because I did those weekly averages too, like that 1.7% difference from that 7-day week 1 to 7-day week 2 was just over or just under 3 pounds difference average weight. You know what I mean? So it obviously makes it look a little bit less drastic than saying 13 pounds. But the same thing applies in terms of what you were saying with the trends and smoothing out what's going on, because the same reason you don't worry about the spikes is the same reason you also don't get super excited about the big dips, because you know those spikes are coming. You know what I mean? So that's why I just like looking at the differences in averages for 7-day periods, 4-day periods, whatever you want to look at, so that you don't get super excited over either one, or don't get too attached to it anyway. You know what I mean? So like you said, if the trend's moving in the right direction, good to go.
Right. All right. So let's move on to my next cycle, so I eat 11,300 calories.
Yeah, that was a big day.
On August 2nd. On August 3rd, I weigh 206.4. So that is about 0.8 of a pound lower than my last peak. And by the end of it, I weigh 194.4, which is a full pound lower than my last valley.
And then you can even see the day after that too, like the peaks are going down as well. The next peak is 206, which is, I mean, less than all of them beforehand. So the way that I'm looking at it right now with the 7-day average, this is interesting to see, because if you're looking at like rolling averages, it depends on when you look at those numbers, right? Especially in your cycle where it's not a 7-day split, you're doing things within 4. So it might be different if we just broke it into 4.
That's the point I was trying to make earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
Right now, your average week 3 weight is higher than your week 2 one, but that's because it's really only looking at your feeding day and then like 1 or 2 fasting days. So obviously it's going to be up. So it takes time to see these trends and whatnot, but that's the point. You know what I mean? You don't get too attached to just like a day or two. It's kind of like what's going on over the whole month or whatever, whole week, whole 4 days.
Right. And so 206 was the day after my last eating day.
Right.
We're recording this on Sunday, August 9th. I weighed in this morning at 195.8, which is on the last eating day, on the third day, the day before the eating day, the third day, was 198.0. So I'll see if I made up that ground, if I actually made up ground this time, or if before I ate last time was 194.4. Is it going to be just like 194.0? Am I not going to get that big third day? I don't think so, but we'll see. Yeah. Because I think it's...
And I mean, that a lot of that's going to be determined based off of like how lean you end up getting. You know what I mean? Like I said, all that relative to how much you actually weigh. And there's going to be a point where it's like, yeah, every third day, whatever, is not going to be quite as big of a drop anymore. It's because you don't have as much to lose. So the leaner you get, the more you lose. Those should get closer and closer, and the gap should shorten. But I'd imagine, my guess is tomorrow you weigh less than that 194.4. Just my guess, based on how things are moving.
We'll give it a look and see. So this is actually day 15, right? So really the day 14 was yesterday, but
right.
Just okay, so I'm going to move on to the measurements. I'll pull up the measurements here for everybody to see. This is something, the data, it's something that isn't going to change as drastically because the numbers aren't as high. Like my thighs are 25 inches at one point and 23 inches at their lowest during this. And I don't expect to see a lot of change in a lot of these numbers. My chest is around 38 to 39, depending on the day. And also, I've never measured things before, so I'm having
Yeah.
Brenna measure me, and
There's
who
lots of
knows
human
how like
error.
consistent we are in the exact same spot of my body. I'm trying to do my best here. I think the best trend is hips, but at the same time, it's kind of like
Yeah, you could be measuring like a
it'd be better
centimeter up or higher.
28 days of the trend rather than just like the first 2 weeks.
Right. And yeah, you can see that this is one of those things where it's the same type of thing, whether you wake up and you're just a little bit more bloated or something, you know what I mean? Like you
Mhm.
haven't gone to the bathroom, anything like that could literally make your waistline be the half an inch bigger, you know what I mean? So it's hard to look, definitely not on a daily basis with something like this. Normally I have people check once a week, but it could be like something like you said. I would have been okay with just seeing like day one measurements, maybe day 15 and then day 28 at the end. You know what I mean? See, there should be a difference at that point from start to finish. But
Yeah.
yeah, you could
And
even look.
maybe I can break that out, like take out some of the numbers so that people can see it on a more like clear basis rather than have every piece of data in there.
Right.
The other thing is I'm going to keep this chart going because after this challenge, I'm going to go into another challenge, which you and I can talk about and release like what my next challenge is going to be in another episode soon. I'm excited about that one. That's going to be a more like healthier food. I'm not going to be eating 10,000 calories. Not going to be eating Pop-Tarts. I'm really excited to share what that is. But for now, we're just going to talk about this one.
Yeah, it's good to keep. I like your idea in doing that because it could be a matter of, okay, you're keeping track of both of these things for that challenge, and maybe your weight doesn't move very much at all, but maybe you lose 3 inches off your waist. And I mean, that's
Mhm.
progress. So it's cool to keep a running tally of everything, not just your weigh-ins.
Mhm. So, do you have any big takeaways from this so far? I think we have like another couple of minutes here. Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, I think you pointed them out already, and that's the biggest thing is going to be that peaks and valleys are normal, right? And the overall trend is what you want to put more of your value in, or put more weight into
Mhm.
in terms of looking at your progression, right? Don't get hung up if the scale jumps up, whether it be 1 pound the next day or for you 10 pounds. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
all the same. The things that affect that are the same for every single person. They're just a little bit more drastic in your situation right now. And then the same with the lows. You know what I mean? Like I always tell people to like celebrate in them, but don't get hung up on them because your weight's going to spike up again. It's inevitable. So
Mhm.
don't really care too much either way. Just look at the averages over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I want to make just a couple of points real quick, and then we can post this. One is I said at the beginning that I want to keep lifting. I'm lifting on my eating day and then the day after, and I want to
Mhm.
keep my weights the same. And I found that not only can I keep them the same, but some of them I've been able to increase. And so I'm very happy with that. And that might be, like I said earlier, one reason why there's not big dips on certain days,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe
You're
I'm
lifting
lifting
harder.
more. Maybe I am gaining muscle, so that's adding a little bit of weight to me rather than just cutting fat. I know that that's not like a one day of a good lift isn't going to add like a ton, but it's like could like hold more water and whatnot. And the other thing is, I said at the beginning that I was going to be lifting on those 2 days, then walking on the other 2 days. But that's not who I am as a person. I like to do things more intensely than that. So like I have been rowing more than just walking because this whole experiment was to like be myself and then like see what happens at the end. So if you know me, you know I do like Orange Theory workouts, things like that. I have a rower here, so I was just like, to me, I'm not for like I'm not saying walking is not a good exercise, but for me, I'd rather be doing something more intense. And if I'm able to do it while fasted, I'm gonna do it, right? So I've been doing like a 30-minute row basically, not every day, and I've also lifted sometimes while 2 days fasted, but not 3 days fasted, and not my more intense lifts. I've been doing like
Right.
arms, or I think I maybe did shoulders one time, but normally I'll try to do like my arms workout on 2 days fasted rather than, no
Right.
squatting,
Squatter. Yeah.
no squat, no
Bad
bench
idea.
press, no deadlifts, nothing like that. So I just wanted to make those two clarifications. because I don't want people to think, oh yeah, you were just walking the whole time, whatever. I am rowing on those days. I think I've done like 4 rows over the first 14 days. So
Then I'm assuming they're not super long. How long is one of your row workouts?
like 30 minutes. So
I mean, it might be slight difference from how many calories you would burn throughout a day if you were just walking and walking more, but probably negligible. You know what I mean? It's not going to make a huge difference.
right, and that's what I figured. But I wanted full disclosure. Like, it's not, if I eat 11,300 calories and I do a row, it would still be better than if I ate, what am I trying to think here? That would still be more calories consumed in a day than if I ate 10,000 and went for a walk. Like a 30-minute row is
right. Yeah, you're not burning 500 or thousands of calories in a rowing session. So yeah, probably evens out pretty nicely.
All right. Well, I just wanted to get that across and make sure that my coach knew what I was doing. So I appreciate your time, John. I hope everybody enjoyed this. We'll be back. We should be back this week with an episode of Fast Track. And then at the end of the challenge, the 28-day challenge, we will give everybody the final results. And we'll see. I'm predicting it's actually going to go better. It's going to trend more downward because my body has momentum. I kind of feel like that's a thing, but it's not something that's like scientifically that John would say, oh yeah, this is like, I think that once your body starts to get into a weight loss mode, it can continue that way. Whereas like it was slow at the first week. And I think maybe that was because of I had been eating for 10 days straight and my body was putting on weight. So it needed time to be like, hold on, we need to figure out what's going on. Pause this. Okay, now we can go in this direction.
Yeah.
So I think that because I'm trending that way, it's going to keep trending that way. That's my prediction.
I already said I think it will slow down, but I am not saying that I'm for sure that that's going to happen within the next 2 weeks. I mean, that's a pretty short time period. You could lose faster than these next 2 weeks. I don't know, but at some point it's going to slow down. 90
days might be a more appropriate timetable for this, but I don't want to.
I mean, you're still showing people enough of like it can be done and what to expect if you do decide to do it.
Right. All right, John, I appreciate the time.
Yep.
All right, I'll see you later. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching the 28-day challenge halfway update.